Agentic AI is like we're getting to a point where we're not just asking AI a question and give us an answer, but we're also giving AI the ability to do things in the real world, basically.
Can you share with us more about Agentic, or at least your perspective of where it's going to go?
I'm going to preface this by saying that I am very excited, definitely, by what Agentic AI is able to do. I will say also, however, that people, like the way people talk about Agentic AI is like, we're here already, like look at all the things we're able to do. And like, I agree, I've tried those and it's crazy. And I think like the thing about Agentic AI is it is very capable in what it is able to do, because the important thing here is that we've reached the point where Agentic AI is not something that only people with technical knowledge can do. You need to experiment with different AI models, right? I have seen a lot of people use ChatGPT for everything. I can think of a few names in my head right now, people who use ChatGPT for every single thing, for content writing, for general, like insight, fact-finding. That should not be the way. Every AI model, especially with a lot of experimentation, right? I've realized that every AI model has its own best use case and stay away from that use case, right? And that's really valuable.
I think I was looking through your LinkedIn. I think you shared on LinkedIn a few months back that you took on a $13 Singapore dollars per hour part-time job while building the Flow Labs. There's this line in the post that stuck with me. It says, quote, desperation is the enemy of good decisions, end quote. Tell me more about that.
There was a time when I was doing this part-time job, $13 per hour, just to make sure I could have enough to pay the bills, keep the lights on while I was building the Flow Labs, and also pay for the software and stuff that I would be using, right? So this point about making sure that desperation is the enemy of good decisions, because of that, it led me to do things that at the time didn't make sense, but I was like, in my head I was thinking, okay, maybe this can get me to the point where I can start making sales faster, right? So, but in the process of all that, I actually burned through everything before the sales even came through, right? And this is a case in point to me where like I was making these decisions from a point of desperation. I didn't have money coming in from elsewhere, so I just wanted to see the results quick. But I think anyone in business would know that there is no quick way to get results.
Hi there. Thank you for being here with On My Own Terms. It's the podcast for the bold, the curious, and those at the crossroads of career and life. Would share it with a friend who needs to watch or hear this too. Do not forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, our socials, and wherever you're watching or listening this from. And if you're on your own journey of change, come check out the link in this episode description or show notes. That's where the free resources, newsletter, and stories live. Real change comes from taking action. Now, back to the episode. Hi everyone, welcome to On My Own Terms podcast. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking with Mohd Rizuan, the founder of the Flow Labs. Rizuan's journey is an inspiring one, starting from humble beginnings, even taking on a part-time job to keep his startup dream alive, to now leading a company that's helping businesses as far as in US and Europe to harness the power of automation and AI. The Flow Labs specializes in building automated workflows that eliminate repetitive tasks, streamline operations, and help SMEs or SMBs, which stands for small and medium businesses, punch above their weight in a fast-changing digital world. In this conversation, we'll explore Rizuan's entrepreneurial path, the real-world impact of automation and AI, and also what these technologies mean for the future of work, for SMBs, and for you. So Rizuan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, John. Happy to be here. Yeah, it's been a while since we last talked, I think.
Yeah, it has. I think for the fun fact, right, that we met online. We met on this group, Tech Sales Singapore, Telegram group. So shout out to them. I think Gil is the founder, right? The co-founder of the Tech Sales Singapore. I haven't been to any of the meetup sessions in person, but look at how I benefited, right? Having spoken with you. We'll share more down the road in this conversation. So as a start, Rizuan, tell us briefly about your journey before the Flow Labs. What led you into AI and automation?
So before the Flow Labs, it was in July 2023. So I got my first ever BDR role at Aspire,
What's BDR?
local fintech, business development rep. Yeah. So it was at this fintech startup called Aspire. I think it's quite a popular one. Probably you've heard of it. And up to that point, before that, I was working in marketing for I think like 2-3 years up to that point. So I was doing sales for a while, and in the midst of all that, I was sort of tinkering with AI and automation tools already. It wasn't super popular at the time. I think it was sort of still gaining in popularity, but in my own time, I was already tinkering and exploring, experimenting with it. So when I left the company, I think it was around August 2024, at the time I started seeing more and more people do this thing as an agency, right? So sales outbound agencies were already a thing at the time, but they were using sort of the older traditional methods. When all these tools started to become more of a thing, basically, right? They started to become more popular. That's when I started to notice a new wave of people starting outbound agencies, sales agencies to help companies leverage these tools. And it kind of gave me the idea that, I figured that I could do something like this as well, because number one, I've already been experimenting with these tools, so I sort of knew how to use them. And I was already in sales for about a year. So you sort of know the lingo, you know what companies in this space need, what the reps in this space need as well. So it kind of felt like a good match, and that's what led me to start my own thing.
At the fintech company, and was that necessity of doing your job well led you to discover such AI and automation kind of agencies, or was it along the way you already been tinkering and exploring and being a fan of technology? That's how you came upon this. Which one was it?
So number one, you find out about the tools that people are using in this space.
Yep.
And then second, you sort of have a better understanding of what's good and what's not good, what's important and what's not important, right? And I think it was this sort of domain knowledge and all that led me to doing this and like being able to have more proficiency with tools specifically in this space. Yeah.
And can I ask, you could still be tinkering on the side and still have a full-time job. What made you quit your full-time job?
One of the biggest factors I would say was it was at a time when I had already been working as an employee for other companies for 3-4 years already, and it kind of felt like a good time to properly step away and try doing my own thing properly. If this was something that happened earlier on in my career, let's say if it was after just 1 year of working for someone else, I probably wouldn't do it, because at the time I think that I wouldn't have the right skill set. I wouldn't have enough skills or exposure to properly do my own thing. The difference was, though, at this point in time, I think it was around August 2024, I kind of felt like, all right, I've been working for other people for a while. I've got enough experience to at least give this a proper try. If it doesn't work out, I can still come back to the workforce. It's not something it's not a permanent decision. I can still reverse it and come back to the workforce. So yeah, main thing was I felt like I was ready enough to give it a try. So that's what got me to give it a shot.
No, it's beautiful. Then, of course, the next question is like, how do you know 5 years is enough? How do you decide at that magic number, right? And I hear the other thing is that you said working for other people. So that means that it sounds like you want to try and take a step at working for yourself. And am I right to say that?
Yeah, that's right.
And 5 years, how do you decide that 5 years was enough? Would you not want to try the similar role but different industry? Would you not want to try to be a team lead so that you can also experience issues and problems at a different level? What made you conclude at 5 years?
I would say that the timing is not the main factor. It's something that's a little harder to quantify, but it's more of, do you feel that for the thing that you want to do, do you already have the skills, the experience, the exposure to be good enough to try, right? Because I think when you want to do something, let's say in my case, I wanted to sort of do this go-to-market automation agency. That's what they sort of call it in the space. If you want to do this thing, you need to have at least gone through certain things or experienced certain things, learned certain things before you can reasonably give this a proper shot, right? Like, for example, number one, you need to at least know what it's like to be in sales, because if you're going to be talking to other founders, other sales leaders about helping their sales teams or helping grow their sales, you need to know the lingo. Otherwise, there's no way you can hold that conversation with them, right? That's number one. Number two, if you're going to be going into this space, go-to-market automation, you need to either one of two things. Either you need to be experienced with the tools that people use in this space, or you need to have enough of a baseline knowledge that you can pick up the rest of the skills relatively quickly so that you can start to offer value to clients. Yeah. So those were the main factors that made me think, okay, you know what? I think I'm ready to give this a try.
I picked up words like baseline, and I agree with you. What I asked was also I would say, a stupid question, right? I mean, how long is enough, right? But I think everyone's definition of enough is different. And I think another point I want to add is that you were also trying to solve the problems that you were facing at your full-time role. So that gives you a bit more intimate understanding of the space, of the persona, and the same lingo or language that you speak to your clients when you start the flow labs. And I think the other point is that a lot of things are actually figure outable, right? You can figure out if you know what you don't know, these are the known unknowns, then you will at least be equipped to address these gaps. Talking to more people, talking to more potential clients, asking ex-colleagues, asking on LinkedIn people to come up for coffee to share their pain points with you, and things like that. So I think that is just something that I want to add as well. I think comfort zone, knowing enough, I think differs from person to person, but it's never enough anyway, because things are evolving very quickly, especially in AI, which we'll go into very, very shortly. And I think, I just want to come back there. I think most things can be figured out, in my opinion. So if you come across, let's say now you do your own thing and you come across things that you want to find out more on, either you go on, I don't know, AI tools like ChatGPT, YouTube, or just to talk to people, right, to find out more. So do not get too hung up about trying to think that you need to know enough. That's my opinion. It sounds to me it's a lot about the back-end processes or workflows that you're helping businesses automate.
Yeah.
What's the payment model like? Do you get do you get a one lump sum payment after implementation? Do you get a recurring subscription kind of model? How does it work for you?
So currently we work on an hourly basis, right? So if we think about all the things that need to be done, ultimately they take time. And what I do is I will charge clients based on an hourly basis, right? So I'll let them know that, okay, for example, let's say you want to do this, this, and this, and this. Okay, I am expecting that this is going to cost a certain number of hours, and then this is my hourly rate. And then, so from there, they might say, okay, cool, this is fine, let's go ahead. Or sometimes they might say, okay, maybe we may not need this, and we may not need this. And so then we would adjust the hours accordingly.
So I put myself in the shoes of a SME owner, and then I got to talk to you and got to understand the benefits you could bring to my business. And then I got to understand that I will have to pay you or pay your agency or your company on an hourly basis. So you will estimate the kind of hours. I mean, a very typical traditional agency model, right? Pay by the billable hours.
Yeah.
But how would you convince me that the ROI is going to be worth it? Especially when you said that the human's involvement is very heavy at the start. And with the context you mentioned that a lot of people just expect that AI or automation is going to work instantly, right, from the fly.
Yeah.
How do you, in that context, how do you explain the ROI of AI? It seems like I'm paying extra money where I could be putting the money better use, let's say for marketing. I'm paying for automation, but yet I still need to be very hands-on, And you say in the beginning, but how long would I know is your beginning? Is it days, weeks, months? Then I got to keep paying you. So maybe I'm describing a typical SMB boss in Singapore.
No, it's fine. I understand. Yeah, it's a very common I'd say concern actually. And the main thing is this: if we don't do this, right? And normally this is how a lot of the conversations go. If we don't do this and you stay the same, number one, I know, we both know what your options are. And number two, we both know the costs of going with those options, right? Let's say, for example, same concern that you had. Let's say, if we're going to be taking this on, it seems like the effort at the start is going to be very high. Then what's the whole point? Because isn't automation supposed to just work like that? Why are we spending all this time doing all of this manual stuff at the start? To them, I say, completely understandable. And it makes sense, because I think people have this idea that automation should just work right off the bat. Right. I think at that point, one of the things that we talk about is if we decide not to go ahead with this, right? If we decide never to do this automation project, that is fine. But we both know how things are going to be as time goes on. Because what are the options if you want to grow, right? Number one, if you want to grow, you have to hire more people, right? You have to hire more people if you want to grow. And the challenge there becomes you're running into the same problem that you would have if you didn't have automation, which is, okay, your costs are going to go up. You need to manage more people. And then if you have a lot of people to manage, you might want to hire someone else to take over the management of those people, which means that the costs again go up. Or you would have to raise your prices, right? But then Raising prices, there's always it's always a tricky topic to approach, I think, right? When you raise prices, people might get sensitive to that and then you might lose business.
The thing that I was thinking of is not every SMB owner or management is aware of what to automate or what is possible to automate. How do you deal with that?
Very good question. And actually, I would say the main answer to that is what I talk about on my LinkedIn or what I post content about out there. Because I think, okay, when we go to a conversation and like what you said, sometimes clients are like unsure about what needs to be automated. Number one, that's where the content that I put out onto LinkedIn, or I haven't done YouTube yet, but eventually. But the content that I put out there, that's when it matters. Because then people, let's say a potential client, right? They go onto my LinkedIn profile, they check out my content, and then they'll see, so I can automate this, I can automate this. I can automate this as well, I can automate this. So that sort of sparks ideas in their head where they take that as an experience and then they'll see within their own team, within their own business, their processes and say, okay, I think these are things that are lacking. I think that this is something that I could ask Rizuan to help me automate. Right, so that's number one. Number two, usually for a lot of companies, there are certain things that generally need to be automated, right? So again, client reporting is one of those things. That's always a classic case of I need to report this data every week, but I just don't want to do this manually, right? So there are certain use cases that are always the same throughout most companies. Certain little things might differ here and there, but although there's one point that I would add to this, which is if a client doesn't know what needs to be what they could automate, then to me, all right, and it might be a little nuanced, like it might differ across companies, but to me, it seems like the pain isn't strong enough. Because let's say if I run a business, right, and there are certain things that are very troublesome to me, these things will surface as a pain to me. And this is something that's always on my mind. Was, oh man, I wish I could automate this, right? So it's something that's always there. So if I go into a conversation with a client and they're sort of like an open box where I don't know what I can automate, could you tell me? Then it sounds to me that the problems are not painful enough yet. So we may not be a good fit, right? Usually the best conversations that I've had so far is they already have certain pains and they're already very painful, right? They're already costing a lot in terms of time or money or other resources. So that's a great place to start where we could say, great, these are already pains that you have. This is what we've already done before. There's a match over here. Let's talk about
that. The next question I have is one of my favorites about like, I think in tech we have this thing called ICP, right? Ideal Customer Profile.
Yeah.
And before we ask that question, it sounds to me that your clientele so far are already pre-selected in a sense. They would have been on LinkedIn, active on LinkedIn, come across your profile, check out your content and get educated about the workflows that can be automated, and then they come to you. That's also already a pre-selection. And I would also say that the more traditional kind of SMB bosses would just think that hiring is the way to solve pain points, to solve problems. I mean, I've come across that. Maybe I'm the very old school ones. So with that, tell me more about like who are some of your clients so far in terms of, I think two parts, right? Who are your ideal kind of customer profile? What kind of industry, company size, and even location? That's one. And part two is who have been your customers so far? What's the kind of profile of your customers so far?
Right. So my ideal customer profile, I would say, is number one, companies that are, I would say, a bit more on the leaner side, right? So, we're not talking about, we're not talking about mid-market companies. We're not talking about enterprise companies. Eventually, I guess we would go there, but that's not my focus right now at this point in time. Right now, my ICP, basically, ideal customer profile is companies that are, I guess we would consider them SMB or even agencies, right? I'm not sure whether agencies fall under SMB, but yeah, smaller teams with smaller businesses, basically. And another thing that's a qualifying factor is, like you said, I think these companies need to at least have the technical inclination to understand why automation matters. They need to understand the value of it. Because I've talked to some small companies as well, and they're not very tech inclined, so they don't understand the value of it. They still believe in the old school way of doing things. Those are not great conversations to have.
Yep.
Once I sense that, I'll step away because I know that it's fighting an uphill battle, basically.
Yep.
So yes, the company needs to understand also the value of automation. They need to be technically inclined to understand these things. Another one, I mean, I think this applies to all companies, but they've got to have the means to pay for it, obviously, because some companies are small and they're not able to, either they don't want to or they can't, in which case it becomes very difficult for me to sort of work with them and justify the sort of effort that I'm going to be putting in for them.
Industry vertical?
Industry verticals, okay, that's a good question. I wouldn't pick any specific industry verticals, but I would say that the important part is that they are generally tech first. Let's just put it that way. It's a little hard to define, like, for example, do I only work with SaaS companies or do I work with certain types of agencies? I don't really do that just because I feel like that puts yourself in a very limited sort of pigeonhole, like shoebox. But it's important that these companies are tech first, right? They understand the value from it, but they may not necessarily have the resources or the knowledge to unlock it. So that's the important part for me.
I was just recalling this article I read yesterday about I think Uniqlo in Singapore opening like its first, like a smaller store concept. It's about 10% of the usual store size, and it's meant to cater to the fast shoppers, busy shoppers in Singapore. And I mean, my day job is in e-commerce, and I think Uniqlo is one of the great examples of how they do omni-channel very well. You've got the app, and then they will try to, when you go to the physical store, they also try to tell you that some of the sizes are only available to order on the app, but yet they make it similar such that when you order on the app, you can pick it up at the store. I think click and collect is what they call it, at the store of a choice. And I thought it's quite seamless in a way, and it's quite smart. So my point of this is that even like a traditional retail industry like Uniqlo, it can also be tech first. It can also be putting an emphasis on the tech delivery or using technology to deliver superior customer experience. So I hear you. So there's no siloed or categorization of industries that are tech or non-tech first, right? Even a traditional industry, customer facing, a non-digital one like retail can also be tech first. So I think that's my point. And also in terms of like your clientele so far, like is there any sort of similar patterns that you see?
So maybe just to give a little bit of context, right now there's two capacities that I work in when it comes to the agency side. The first one is I automate things for other agencies, right? So that's number one. Number two is I work with other agencies to automate things for their clients. So like in essence, there's two capacities when it comes to agencies. Either I serve agencies or I help agencies serve their clients better. The common thing I would say about these agencies is that, number one, they are generally within the go-to-market space, right? And because I think when it comes to go-to-market space, they are willing to invest more money. And that's one thing that I've noticed, right? When it comes to go-to-market sales, they are willing to invest more money. So that's one thing that I've noticed. So yes, they are generally within the go-to-market space. And then the other one is that these teams want to stay lean. They are not like you. I think we've all seen agencies where like they want to grow in size. They want to become the biggest agency in the world, take on a huge number of clients. The agencies that I work with don't really want to do that, right? They are very focused on staying as lean as possible, operating as lean as possible, but being able to serve, not say as many clients as possible, but being able to serve a certain number of clients in the best way possible, in the most efficient, effective way possible, right? And so these are the agencies that they inherently understand why automation is so important, because they want to stay lean. They want to give the most value, but not increase in terms of cost. So
ICP, right? ICP, this is your ICP.
yes, standard.
Premium, preferred. PCP, right? Preferred customer profile. Okay.
Yes, that's the
so that's agency is one segment of it. And how about the other segment, if any?
The other segment is, I would say, well, the other segment tends to be a little bit of a mix. Right now, there is no defined type of ICP, but I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, which is like, generally these companies want to stay lean, right? They're not. Their goal is not to increase in headcount so fast. They want to stay lean. So again, going back to the that education company, right? They want to stay lean. They want to serve as many students as possible, manage their community without having to hire so many people, right? So that's another one. And then there's another sort of like SaaS company, basically. Not too many details on that yet, because we're still early in that relationship. But yeah, another SaaS company. They don't want to, unlike other SaaS companies where they get fundraising and then they want to just like hire a huge team. They don't want to do that, right? They want to be able to serve as many customers as possible, but stay as lean as possible, right? So then we automate things within their team. So that's another one.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Yeah, the arguments I hear you put forth so far, it's about cost, right? The ROI is about cost. You invest in this automation now, you reap the rewards down the road because you don't have to hire people, you don't have to pay headcount, you don't have to increase your team, and you can still scale the same level with lesser people, or you are the same people, you can do more, you can serve more customers. Now,
Yeah.
what do you think of the argument of like saying that you add quality, right? You save cost, that's one, but you also get better work. Maybe automation or with AI, we'll come more to that about AI part later on, can actually produce more consistent or more superior work. What are your thoughts on this?
It is true. However, and I think this is a very important asterisk there, I think people underestimate the amount of work it takes to get AI to a point where the outputs are reliable and consistent. Because
Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah.
I like that. Say that again.
yeah, so basically, people heavily, not just underestimate, but heavily underestimate the amount of work that it takes to get AI to a point where the outputs are very reliable and consistent. That's the number one thing I've seen within the space, because everyone talks about being able to use AI to automate a ton of stuff, but I think everyone's looking at that angle, but we sort of forget. It's a commentary, right? We always look at the angle, we forget the middle part, the starting part especially. There is so much work and testing that happens there that, and this is another thing that I realize in conversations with potential clients or even clients. When you tell them AI, it's like, oh yeah, okay, we should be able to do this very quickly. But then one of the things we need to let them know is, hold on, there's a lot of testing that needs to be done here. There's a lot of work that we need to put into here to get AI to a point where you can depend on it very reliably. Yeah, that's very important. So yeah, I agree with the thought, but again, it's just a very important part of it that people forget.
Maybe one example I can give is that so at work now I've been using a lot of Copilot because that's what my company uses. For my personal front, I use ChatGPT, the paid version, and I understand the value of good prompts. I think it's super important, and also correct me if I'm wrong. I think when you talk about the amount, people heavily underestimate the amount of work needed to get reliable work from AI. To me, that work refers to my prompting that I put in, right? I will spend some time putting in the right question, putting the right context and background, trying to give my preferences, if any, trying to give some criteria, if any, so that I get better quality answers from ChatGPT or Copilot. So, I think why, or the issue is that people can just put in a question versus my question, but I develop it into, let's say, 3 paragraphs. Essentially, I could be asking the same thing, but my 3 paragraphs gives more context, gives more background, gives more criteria of my results that I'm looking for. The issue is people can still ask that one simple line of question and get the output, and people assume that the output from that one line of question is going to be as good as the output you get from typing 3 paragraphs of prompts or question. So I think this could explain the popularity of people like ChatGPT and OpenAI, because they make it so easy for people to chat, to type in things.
Yes.
But at the same time, this could also be the source of what you said. Like, people assume that is how it should work. But I
Yes.
don't think it is.
It's not. Actually, I have an interesting story to share where so this guy within the go-to-market automation space based in Europe, his prompts for writing cold emails for his clients, all right? You want to take a guess at how long the prompt is?
I don't know. 1,000 words, 800 words, 500 words. I don't know.
35 pages. 35 pages. That whole thing that is how long his prompt is. I think sometimes we're used to the idea of 1 page is a very long prompt. No, this guy's prompt is 35 pages long. But because of that, it is very, very good at doing what it does. I think that's the kind of work that we're talking about, where like you said, people think that one question and then the prompt that they get, that's as good as it gets. No. But even 3 paragraphs, like I've seen the extent to which it can go. 3 paragraphs, like even for myself, I don't do 3 paragraphs anymore. Mine is pretty long, but it's not 35 pages long. Like that's the kind of prompt engineering I've seen in this space. So yeah.
It seems like we can talk all day about this. But thank you. No. This is so wonderful. So maybe you can share what AI or automation technologies that that power the Flow Labs solutions. LLMs, RPA, APIs, or custom tools. I mean, I'm just babbling all this stuff, but
Sure.
Can you share more?
Yeah. So I would say that every company that does AI must have like their standard AI LLM
Toolkit.
that they use, right? So for mine, I use Claude.
Mm.
I don't really go to ChatGPT or any other model nowadays. If I need to get something, to quickly understand or just like be able to spin up like a prompt or whatever, I use Claude. So that's my number one thing. I have a Claude subscription now as well. Another tool that I use a lot is this tool called N8N. I know it sounds like a mouthful to some people. N8N. So this is my go-to automation platform, right? And for those who are unfamiliar, the alternatives to that would usually be something like Zapier and Make.com, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I prefer N8N because it's very developer friendly. It's because for me, I code, right? I also write code as well, and I use it to build integrations, automations for companies. So I want to have a platform that is very friendly to someone who wants custom code, and N8N so far has been the best for that. So that's my go-to automation platform. I do use Zapier and Make as well, but to a very limited capacity.
Also paid version, right?
Yep, sorry.
N8N. Also paid version. You're using a paid version.
Paid version, yes. Paid version.
Got it. Okay. I want to also circle back to zoom up onto your decision about leaving your full-time role at a relatively growing company, the fintech company, to do your own thing. And I think I was looking through your LinkedIn. I think you shared on LinkedIn a few months back that you took on a $13 Singapore dollars per hour part-time job while building the Flow Labs. There's this line in the post that stuck with me. It says, quote, desperation is the enemy of good decisions, end quote. Tell me more about that.
So yeah, like I said, there was a time when I was doing this part-time job, $13 per hour, just to make sure I could have enough to pay the bills, keep the lights on while I was building the Flow Labs, and also pay for the software and stuff that I would be using, right? So this point about making sure that desperation is the enemy of good decisions. I've been in this position before where I wanted to start building a business, right? And I was sort of like in the early stages of building it, but I wasn't having money coming in from another source. So I was just relying purely on my very limited pool of savings or whatever else I had at the time. Right? And because of that, it led me to do things that at the time didn't make sense, but I was like, in my head, I was thinking, okay, maybe this can get me to the point where I can start making sales faster, right? So very quick example, but at the time I was trying to build like sort of like a small e-commerce store, right? And I wasn't having money coming in from elsewhere. So I wanted to see the results fast because I was scared my small capital would run out. So in my head, I was thinking of all sorts of ideas. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna pay for ads. I'm just gonna quickly pay for ads and try to, because I know how long social media is gonna take. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll just quickly pay for ads, even if it's expensive. I just thought, okay, I'll just try to pay for ads. Or I actually even hired a photographer to take photos of my product at the time, because I was thinking like, okay, I can't do these pictures well on my own. Maybe I'll just quickly pay for someone to do this and I can get the pictures back. But in the process of all that, I actually burned through everything before the sales even came through, right? And this is a case in point to me where like I was making these decisions from a point of desperation. I didn't have money coming in from elsewhere, so I just wanted to see the results quick. But I think anyone in business would know that there is no quick way to get results unless you have a massive pool of money somewhere, right? To like startup funding or whatsoever. So that was where the lesson came from, actually, right? And so when it came to building the Flow Labs this time, I took from that experience and I said, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I can give myself the runway to create content that gets recognized by people who might want my services, right? I wanted to make sure that I could take the time to properly come up with good content, that I could probably take the time to do work for free so that I can put my name out there, right? And rather than start charging for work from the get-go when I didn't have social proof, I wanted to make sure that I had the time to do these things, which necessitated the part-time job at the time so that I could at least bring in some money to pay for the stuff that I would. So yeah, that's where that point about desperation is the enemy of good decisions, that's where it came from, right? Where if you don't have stability, at least some level of stability, your head is going to be a mess, right? And then you start doing things that inherently don't make sense, but you're sort of taking a bet that, oh, what if it works out for me, Yeah, and yeah, I've learned that lesson now.
Yeah. And for context, you just turned 30. I say this because you don't need to have a lot of years of living in this world to have experience. I think the years or your age doesn't really equate to experience. And of course, experience doesn't always also equate to wisdom, right? People sometimes tend to make same mistakes, multiple times. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to have you to share with us what is your vision and what are your thoughts about the future of work and what it means for the average white collar employee out there. I think also for context, I looked up for some statistics. It's that in Asia, especially, these Gen AI adoption, in Asia, we have about 63% of firms that are scaling AI in at least one department or one unit, compared to 54% globally. I think this is derived from this BCG, Boston Consulting Group survey done last year, but the report was released this year in March.
Yeah.
And the other, so that's businesses, and then let's go down to the employees, the white collar employees. Asian employees are a bit more ahead as well. There are about 74% of them using Gen AI at work, and then 31% are using it daily. I can say that I'm one of those 31%. Some context, I think the survey was done last year, so I think the numbers could also even be higher since then. So that's the context of the landscape. And with you telling and sharing with me how you're helping SMBs trying to help them scale without hiring more headcount, what are your thoughts about the future of work? Does this mean that it's going to be much harder now for the average white-collar worker to get a job? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying that it will not necessarily make getting a job harder, but it will require a different skill set, right? And we've seen a lot of talk about being able to use AI. Like that's an important skill set, right? You need to be AI first in a sense. I think people don't realize what that means, because being AI first and being good at AI doesn't just mean knowing how to go onto ChatGPT and write in a question, right? Everybody does that. That doesn't make you AI first. What really makes you AI first is, like, number one, you need to know how to get good with prompting AI, right? That's very important. So going back to what we talked about previously about how do we get good at prompting AI, that's important. You need to inherently understand these things. And number two, you need to have an understanding and a knowledge of the platforms out there that enable you to use AI in different use cases, right? So, for example, if you wanted to set up customer support agents, you would use something like Linda. I think it was Lynda.ai or something, right? Like these are different platforms out there that you should know how to use, because you can either use it to automate your own work or help your employers automate work for certain things as well. Right? So, yeah, going back to the point, will it make getting a job harder? No, but it will mean that you need to have a different skill set. And I think having this skill set puts you ahead of other candidates who might be a bit more resistant to adopting AI, and not just adopting AI, but knowing how to use AI well. Right? So that's number one. And I think number two is we're getting to a point where companies are, and this goes to the jobs part, I think companies are starting to realize that they can get the same amount of work done with the same amount of people or even less people, right? So I think this is the part where it plays into, it might be harder to get a job in the future. I guess that's one way of looking at it, but I think another way of looking at it potentially is you could, and if you start earlier, right? Like you could be in a position where you can work with these companies, whether as an employee or as an agency or whatever, to help them get better at using AI. Because what I've seen, and from my conversations with other companies, they're using AI, but they're not using it well. And they don't necessarily have the skill set or the technical knowledge to know how to use AI well. And more importantly, not every industry is adopting AI to the same level, right? And I think we've seen some talk about this where companies in the SaaS space, tech space, they're very tech first, so they sort of get AI. But now, if we step into something like real estate, and I was just talking to one of my friends who is in real estate, insurance, I don't know, home services, for example, right? There's a lot of other industries that are not using AI. Yeah, healthcare. It's like they're not using AI well, if at all, right? That's about if at all. So I see a real opportunity there for people to, like take their domain knowledge in a not as popular industry, but also learn how to work with AI so that they can then offer value to companies in this space and say like, okay, we can work with you to adopt AI better, right? And then automate certain things or just like get more efficient or more effective at the work you do. So I think that's another opportunity where, yes, it might be harder to get jobs in a traditional context, but it opens up opportunities in other areas to help companies adopt AI. And I think generally, if you're someone who loves to use AI, you are in a very good position already to be working with other companies.
And this corresponds with the survey results as well from the BCG report. About 48% of Asian companies see AI-ready talent as the top as a top challenge. So, what's one tip? What's one thing one can do to do all those stuff like what you mentioned earlier, to know how to get good at prompting, be familiar with the different AI platforms for specific use cases, help their employers better use AI. What's one thing one can start right away?
The one thing that I think is very important is set aside time to experiment. And this is very important to me because this is something that I do all the time. I don't think enough people do it. Have a set number of hours or even a day, every week, like in the midst of all the work and life stuff that you need to be doing. Have some time set out every week or even every day to experiment with different tools, experiment with AI, push it to its limits, right? See what its capabilities are. And not just experiment. I think this is the important part. Not just experiment, but how do you do something new whenever you experiment, right? Like, for example, I set aside time on the weekends usually to like try a different tool or learn a certain skill, AI related skill or whatsoever, and then try to actively push the limits of what I already know so far.
Give an
Now,
example.
this is important.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Something that happened recently was I was experimenting with this database. It's called Pinecone, right? Pinecone. It's an AI first database, right? It's a database built for AI workflows. Now, up to that point, I have no idea how to properly set up an AI first database to like ingest and reuse AI content. I wasn't really sure like how to properly set it up. So I spent the weekend. I just created a Pinecone account, and set up some of the workflow, and I experimented with every single thing. If I put the settings a certain way, what's the kind of result that I get? If I use this model in the database, what sort of results will I get with content, for example? Right? Because of that, now I'm in a position to say like, okay, if someone needs a certain workflow and they need this kind of database, I know how to set it up right away. Yeah. I hope that's a good example. To
Yeah,
share.
I mean this example is very relevant to what you do, right? To help companies to have automation. So,
Yes.
but I guess the example can also be for folks that to try out non-work related stuff, to explore a hobby. For example, it could be using an AI tool to generate image to generate videos, using Sora to generate videos, and things like that. Maybe I'll just share a quick example. So last year I was trying to the craze. I don't know whether you're familiar with this. Last year there was this craze where people started to use AI generated pictures of themselves on LinkedIn as a LinkedIn profile picture. And I wanted to do that. I thought it was a time to refresh a new like headshot for me, So I played with that. And there's free apps out there to try it out, and like you send your own selfie. I think 20 selfies they both generate, and then based on the background that you want, you can pay for a very corporate looking like background. So things like that. So, I mean that's my input to this question, right? I think setting aside time to play with different tools. It can also just be about personal pursuits. And an example, recently I was using ChatGPT to plan an itinerary for a family trip, for example. It's not pushing ChatGPT a lot by doing that, but my point is that I'm trying to explore new use cases with all these tools that are available out there to see whether I get better outputs versus me Googling on my own and asking around and searching on my own manually. So that's my non-work specific kind of example.
Yeah. And I think like even with these use cases, people don't see the value in it. And like there's actually a lot of value to be had in these, like being able to use AI in very specific ways. Because like, for example, okay, I actually love this example. Coming up with AI videos. There are agencies right now that literally all they do is just AI video, right? And they help companies generate AI videos for different use cases. Now, I'm not gonna talk about the ethics of it. I know that there's a lot of debate over there, right? So if we ignore the ethics for a while, I've seen agencies all they do is just AI video, right? And this is something that someone might do as just to play around with AI, right? Like just like, hey, get me a video for this, get me a video for this. But some people have played with it so much, have gotten so good at it that companies now actually want to pay them to get these kinds of outputs, right? And it applies to video, audio, pictures, it's a lot of AI generated output, I guess. So yeah, one thing I would say definitely is like if you love to play AI in a certain way, don't underestimate the value of it, because there is someone out there who wants the output that you are able to create, but just doesn't know how to get there.
Wonderful. Next few questions is more or less like a lightning round. Although the answers you give may not be very short. You don't have to restrict your answers to a short one. I think first one is to someone who is currently in a corporate job and considering starting a side hustle or a side business, what's one advice you would give?
Don't underestimate the power of working for someone else. This is very important to me because I used to be the kind of person who was like, I don't need to work for other people, man. I can learn everything on my own. I can do stuff on my own, all right? But what I've realized over these past 3 or 4 years is there is so much value to be had in working for other people to learn skills and build relationships. That is crazy important. Like, for example, like we met, through Tech Sales Singapore, and then some of my first clients as well that I did some work for. I met them at work. Right? I met them at work. I met them through networking events, which were because of work.
Yep.
And then I would say that all of the skills that I have now and that I'm confident in using, I learned in big part because I was already using them for an employer. And then I took those skills out and I said, okay, now I can do this on my own and I can do this for other companies. Right. So yeah, for those who are considering doing something on the side or even like building your own business, if you need to spend some time working for someone else to learn the skills, please do it. It's an investment in yourself.
I'll add on. If I may, I was going to say
Yeah,
relationships, meeting people. I think these are crucial stuff to do what you want to do after that. So you mentioned that. I would add on to that. I also think that I benefited from understanding how bigger companies structure SOPs, structure
Yes.
processes. I think that helps me to think about if I were to do my own thing, how I would structure certain things. Another way to think about this is how big companies with bigger resources organize resources.
Yeah.
Let's just say they got only $100 to spend to invest in the next coming year. How would they spend $100? Right? What departments, what structure would they build? Do they want to build a bigger marketing team or bigger sales team? So I think this kind of SOPs or this kind of structural thinking is going to be quite difficult if you're a solopreneur starting
Correct.
out. And if you're a fresh grad and you want to do your own business, I don't think you're able to get this kind of organizational influence or organizational or structural knowledge. That's that. Now, having said all that, I also add on to say that my observation is that some people get comfortable working in companies, working for other people, and then life happens, right? They meet someone special, they start to take holidays, they want to propose, they want to put down their down payment for BTO. BTO is built to order, right? In Singapore context, you get a public flat. And then you start to sign those credit cards. You start to, I don't know, you want to buy more fancy stuff, buy the branded luxury stuff, go for nice lunches with colleagues, with friends. And then you get into this handcuff situation, right? Golden handcuffs. You are just locked into this kind of luxuries. And then it's going to be, that makes it difficult for you to pivot out, to do your own thing down the road. So that's also that lure. Yeah, there was a saying that I heard somewhere. I don't know who said it. Someone famous said it. Maybe I'll put it into the show notes. There's nothing more addictive in this world than, I think, drugs, alcohol, and a monthly salary.
Yes. Oh, yes, I've heard that one. Yeah.
There's nothing more addictive than drugs, alcohol, and a monthly salary. But I 100% agree with you. I think meeting people, it's wonderful. You bounce ideas. That work that you do, and the day job could bring you to places to meet other more interesting people, right, and learn different things. So 100%. Next question. Sorry, it's been lightning round.
That's good.
What's one piece of belief or one piece of like conventional life or career advice that you completely disagree now?
There is one actually that education now is so important is because it, like, number one, it gives you options to learn at work, right? Because I think we all know this, but if you don't have a degree, it's harder to get a job. But if you're not able to even get to that level, it's harder for you to learn the skills within an organizational context, which makes it easier for you to take those skills and apply it to other companies, right? So that's number one. Like, I would properly focus on school and like try to focus on relationships, learn from people, get into internships and things like that, right? Just to maximize the value of it. But also, yeah, I think now my perception is that it's important because it unlocks the learning you need to be able to have in order to do your own thing in the future, right? It unlocks the relationships, it unlocks the skill sets, the learnings that you need so that you can actually go out there and do your own things. These are really important to me.
My takeaways about education is you mentioned, like, learn how to learn, and also network/relationships. I think when you are in those formative years, when you're younger, easier to make friends, easier to be in a social situation, surrounded in a social situation, surrounded with friends, like-minded people, and this form your support network down the road when you go out to work, where you can come together and I don't know, whine and bitch about things, and also to get help. Just become your support system, support network. It's interesting to hear you talk about education from someone who is helping others to automate things and who is a big user of AI. There's this talk about the redundancies of having a college or a university education. And I read headlines just a few days back on Channel News Asia that professors, I think, in universities in Singapore saying that it's pointless to block students using AI in school.
Yeah.
But it's interesting for you to say this. And I also couldn't help but notice that you graduated from Ngee Poly.
Yeah.
Right? And it formed impressions in me that you are not someone that I get to meet every day with your background, with your career path, and then to do what you're doing now. And I think that's a big reason why I thought I want to speak with you on your journey and your learnings. For sure, there can be a part two. I mean, for those watching or listening in, put in the comments if you want to, or put in comments on what questions you'd like me to ask Rizuan. We can do a part two for this. And my ultimate last question for today is if you could have a billboard with any message you want to broadcast, what would it be?
Okay. I have one. And I will put a disclaimer here that it is something that someone else has, sort of said before, but I sort of repackage it into my own, based on my own experience, which is if you really want to succeed at anything, be patient enough to fail and slowly grow. I'm not sure whether that's a good way to put it, but I think just the general idea is that be patient enough to do the same thing again and again and fail a lot at the start before you can start to see success. That's the main thing now, because I think, and this problem is going to become even more, I think, pervasive nowadays, where because of AI, people want the results to come even faster than we've already been expecting it, right? Like we're already used to this idea of next day shipping and all that, and then suddenly people's brains get rewired to like, okay, things can come fast. And now we have AI who can give me results in like 5 seconds. Now people's perceptions will shift and they want things to come even faster. But because of all that, right, there is a lot of value to be had in just being patient enough to fail a lot, so that you can actually get good at something. Even for myself, when I was getting into this space, like even with AI and all that, yes, the results can come fast, but getting good at it, right, and getting better at it than I guess the rest of the competition, for example, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of experience, takes a lot of failing again and again so that you can get good at it. That's something that if you are patient enough to sit through, you will be way ahead of the competition. I know that for a fact.
My version of that is be patient with results, be impatient with action.
Yes.
You need to put in reps or repetitions, and that is action. And in your terms, could be like trying things, experiment. Be impatient with that. But to see it to really work down the road, be patient with results. And that's my version of it. The other thing that came to my mind when you said that is, and it just came to me last night, work on things that last.
Yeah.
I think tools, methods, tactics can change. The example I heard was, now we're doing a podcast. The example I heard last night was, what happened to those guys who were teaching people how to blog? Blogspot.com, and back then blog was a big thing, right? And then blog businesses use blog to get results, to get content and traffic and all that. And then now it's video. Last time was pictures, Instagram, and then now it's pictures, and now it's video and things like that. So I think tactics, methods change, but the spirit of experimenting, the spirit and that desire to deliver results, what lasts, I feel, is businesses will always want to be able to make more with less. I think if you can help businesses do that, regardless of the methods, I think that's something that is going to be there for a long, long time. This is in resonance with what Jeff Bezos said about Amazon. Focus on things that last. People always want more variety, faster shipping, and better customer service. So these are themes that will always stay. People will always and expect all this stuff. So work on this stuff, right? Be it you fly something over, is it 3-day delivery, now it's 24-hour delivery. These are just methods to deliver what people want. So likewise for businesses who will always want to be able to be productive, make more with less. And I think the way you're helping them with these tools and methods makes sense in right now, 2025, right? And for all we know, one of these tech giants could create something else. Maybe agentic AI would be a very big thing next year with big breakthroughs. Then we know it'll be a different kind of tool and tactics from there. So any last words for us or for me?
Last words. One thing that I would definitely say is I've been in a position before where, it's getting harder and harder to get a job. And like, I think the fear that everyone has around AI is that, oh man, everyone's talking about it. If you spend some time on LinkedIn, everyone's talking about it. And we have this idea that we are like late to the party. Everyone talks about it so much. And I've talked to some people who feel this way, where they feel like they're behind because they've seen everyone talk about it. They've seen, everyone using it and all. To which I say, number one, we are still incredibly early, because even though the landscape of AI tools is kind of big right now, the proper adoption of it is still not there. Even within the most advanced companies, right? Or even within the most sort of tech-focused companies, AI adoption is still not really there, right? There's still a lot of room for improvement. And if that's the case within tech-first companies, imagine what it is like for companies that are not really within the tech space, right? There's so much potential for AI. There's so much potential for proper adoption of AI. You're not late. We're still early. If you now is a great time to really start experimenting with AI and just getting used to all the tools, playing around with different things. Use it a lot, as much as you can in your day-to-day, right? Use it for your own work. Use it for maybe to help other people with something, even if it's not in a business context. Say you're helping a friend or a family member, just get used to this idea of using AI to do things with it. Right? And then another thing is get comfortable with putting yourself out there. I think that's really important now, just because everyone's going to be talking about AI, but what will help you stand out, whether it's in terms of, getting employed or just getting clients, if let's say you want to go and do your own thing next time, is making sure people know about you, right? And there's lots of different ways to do it. You could go to networking events, you could be posting on social media, you could be doing whatever else, but get used to this idea of putting yourself out there, right? I don't think people do it enough, and I've seen the kind of difference that it makes when, before I started really going out there versus after I started doing it. So please, if you're watching, start early. These things take time to build, but you start early enough, when the time comes that you need to really play your cards, it's a lot easier for you. I'd say those were the main things.
For businesses who are interested to know more about the kind of automation services or solutions that you provide, how can they best reach you?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. You can either reach out to me to LinkedIn. I'm kind of active there just because I spend a lot of time there talking to people and stuff. So LinkedIn's a great way to reach me. If not, you can also come to my website. You can look through the stuff that I've done before for clients over there. And then also, there's a place there that you can reach out to me. We can book a call, we can chat, see whether it makes sense for you, or whether, maybe we might have a conversation again down the road. So yeah.
Cool. Rizuan, it's been a pleasure. We overrun by a lot. Good luck to me on editing. And thank you for being here. And I look forward to a part 2 of this conversation.
Yeah, likewise. I've really enjoyed this chat.